Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, returning guest. His name is Leumas. If you listen to my show, you've probably listened to him as a guest. I've also been on his show, Chant It Down Radio. But today we have something a little different, something new, something cool that he's just finished. If you're watching this on X, Rumble, or Rockfin, you'll see the logo for his new documentary called Sacred Sights. So it's Sacred Sight. And I watched the first half today. It was really interesting. A lot of great sites around the world. We were talking in the pre-show about his trip to Malta because I've done the Knights of Malta, which ties into the history of Malta, which are those three islands south of Sicily in Italy in the middle of the Mediterranean. But this has incredible history. Malta does, of like civilization after civilization after civilization on top of it. But this movie is about these places. I mean, he can talk more about it, but it's basically about, was there a pre-historical civilization with similar? I mean, there are pyramids all over the world. We know that. This is provable. It wasn't as easy, obvious as it is now in the 21st century, but I think it's pretty clear to even the casual observer. But you can go back and look at some of our old shows too. We did one recently. The most recent one was about emerging technologies in the new golden age, which has a darker tinge to it than people might think. PSYOP after PSYOP after PSYOP, election mind control. We also have done global death cult and then the Lahaina Inferno, which is a real catastrophe. But anyway, he can talk more about his documentary. So Leumas, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, William. Always a pleasure to be here.
For people who may not have heard our last show, I know you Chant It Down's been around for some time, like 10 years. Maybe you can talk about your background and what led up to putting together and publishing this documentary.
All right. Yeah. Well, so I've been doing Chant It Down since 2013. I kind of got all of my start to this way back when in 1999, when I was roommates. I was, only 20 years old, but I was roommates with this older guy who was like an insider of the system basically, and he told me, coming up all this stuff's going to happen, including 9/11. How he knew, I wish I knew, but he knew a lot of stuff, and he was building a house for his family on the big island at the time. That's where I was living, to kind of get away from it all. He was a high up in the USDA. So when 9/11 happened, I'm this guy I never got in contact with again, because he was just there for 2 months in this place I was staying in. That led me to like, wow, that was such a revelation that he knew something big was going to happen once George W. Bush came in. And so that kind of led me on a path differently than most people my age and at the time. So long story short, I just, I started just really digging in this type of information for many years, and it got me down many different paths. And I think by the time it was 2013, I was like overflowing with all this and I didn't know where to put it. So I was friends with a few people in the alternative media by that point. And I was like, you know what, I need to just do what they're doing and make a radio show. And so that's how my show was born in 2013. And then from then on, I just started, covering all kinds of information, whatever came my direction. I just started to explore and do it on the show. In 2015, me and my girlfriend at the time went to Peru, and I saw the ancient sites of Machu Picchu and Sacsayhuaman, and that really inspired me because I remember reading about this stuff when I was a little kid, but I didn't really fully understand it until I actually got up to these monuments, and it was just mind-blowing. So then I started covering a bit of that stuff on my show. And then 2022, we went to Egypt it was actually my wife's birthday. So, I went there with the intention in mind, well, maybe I'll never go there again. I don't know. It's so far from Hawaii. So I just recorded everything I saw. And then when I came back, I thought, well, I'm going to make a documentary. So I had all this footage, but I'm like, everybody has said stuff. What can I add new about Egypt? Probably not a lot. And so I just started collecting footage, traveling places, England, and Malta, Bosnia, all these spots. And then a friend of mine contacted me more than a year ago, and he says, "Hey, there's this book that talks about a pyramid here in Hawaii." I'm like, "Really?" Well, so we went out and we started to do excursions to try to find and follow the clues in this book. And it just led to this organic unfolding of people that came my way and more spots that opened up. I ended up going down to Australia and found more spots with my friend Triffin. And it just sort of set me on this sort of side journey that was different than a lot of the work that I put out, but it was fun because it was just kind of like being Indiana Jones, but not being part of the academic system, actually looking at this with the right sight. And so what I put together was, I have a amalgamation of a lot of information here in this documentary. And I thought, I'm looking at sacred sites, but I'm also trying to show people how to look at things with that proper sight, as in with your eyes, from the ancient past, trying to put together all these mysteries, and then also incorporating the sight we need to see with our own eyes right now, so we're not deceived. So that's how this documentary just sort of came about. It kind of grew itself. It's weird, and of course you're in it, William. So it was great to get you on there with a bunch of eclectic different voices. And that was another thing I wanted to do, is I wanted to put in a bunch of different people that might not even know each other or even have that similar of work, just to kind of give a broad view of the site we need to see with our eyes. And I also say in the documentary, with your heart, you need to see with your heart too, so that's how this thing came about. It kind of just organically grew.
Because there's a lot going on. Every place that you go to has some kind of ancient sites to it that even like the people are mysterious. Like, how did this get here? So it's
Yeah.
almost like it's like an international thing. Like these sites are all over the world, right?
Yeah. And when we talk about pyramids, we're looking at a worldwide, must have been some kind of worldwide communication, because how would people in Hawaii know what a pyramid is when we're the most isolated island chain in the world? And then you can find them on places like the Mauritius Islands. You can find them in Tahiti. You can find them in, strange places. And so some of the two most common themes that come up in the documentary is the worldwide flood that is throughout many cultures in the world, including the Bible, and then of course pyramids and huge stones that people today still couldn't move with cranes, and so all that is around the world. So it shows that there was some kind of global communication or something going on that we're not being told in our academic school system.
Right. It's like they can't comprehend that prehistory could be that sophisticated. I'm almost positive they found like cocaine in the bodies of mummies. So they know the so called new world was in contact with the old world back there. You mentioned Mew in your documentary, some of these old civilizations, Atlantis or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there had to have been something going on. There's like huge, like structures in China and Japan too, like underneath the water. Like they're everywhere. There's
Yeah.
one that I was researching in like one of the kind of Pacific island chains too. Like it's amazing what they're covering up. There's it's weird that they're covering up the height of these people, all this stuff. It's just like they don't. There's something. I guess is it the power of Christianity that the Earth is only 7,000 years old or 8,000 years old? Is that they don't want to go back even farther? What do you think that is?
Well, yeah, I don't really know. I feel like it's not just Christianity, but, and I don't have anything against Christianity, but I feel like the book of Genesis, it has been a compacted book of, and you could probably take some of these events and expand them thousands of years, because just that little blurb on Nephilim and how they found the daughters of men were attractive, and that's a whole story if you get into the book of Enoch. I just feel like there's that part of it, but then there's the academic side, that we came and evolved from monkeys, and that we're these we were just these hunter gatherers, and suddenly civilization arose 6,000 years ago. None of that makes sense to me, when you look at this evidence just for what it is. So I feel like there's a cover up on many sides, and just exposing this Hawaii stuff. I mean, I haven't gotten too much flack yet, but just that throws the history here out the window a bit too. So,
Right, because Hawaii was supposed to be recently settled, right,
yeah,
by Pacific Islanders, right? Can you talk
yeah,
about that?
yeah, yeah. It was settled. Well, they think 300 AD. The Marquesans came here, and then in 1,000 AD, the Tahitians migrated here, which were a war culture, and they killed off the original people. But that's not really that long ago when we're looking at history. I mean, that's pretty new. So what are these possible pyramids, alleged pyramids, doing here? We haven't. I mean, there are some definite possibilities. These are, and so we're looking into it, and that means that something was greater here and bigger. So I do feel like there's a lot more in our history that's just not being looked at. Um, and I guess what I like about this set of information is that I can get a lot more people on board with it than some of the other stuff I cover, because uh, it intrigues just about everybody. But what I like that I could do with this documentary is I could also bring people down the rabbit hole of what's happening today, and they have to watch that too, and take that in. So it's like that was my doorway for those people that don't know about what's going on in the present world to look at too. But anyway, I'm sort of going off on tangents here, but yeah, that's how it. I think there's a big cover up of our ancient past for sure.
There's a cover up. I think that's cultural and political too, right? They don't want people to know that technology might have existed or something or older people or giants. Like there's
Yeah,
a lot of stuff they're just not willing to link into, right?
right. And the giants, you don't have to go that far back, because the 1800s they're talking about giants. Uh, Abraham Lincoln talked about giants in the area of Niagara, and there were big skeletons that the Smithsonian must have hidden the bones. I mean, there's even the talk of, what's this guy's name, G.E. Kincaid, who found in the Grand Canyon mummies, and like a cave with mummies and all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if that's fully true. We won't know ever, but the Smithsonian definitely got involved with that and covered it up. So, I wouldn't doubt it.
Right. There's evidence of dispersion like all over the world. I
Yeah.
think they found Hebrew writing somewhere in that area, like New Mexico or Arizona. They covered it up. Like there's no way
Yeah.
this could have happened. And it's all, so that's old. And I think I've done a show on the giants of the Smithsonian. They've covered it up and hid it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the whole thing going back into prehistory of the world is different, because in other parts, this is like in I think Hinduism, there's the cataclysms and cycles that are very long, much different than the kind of Western biblical view, right? Do you know about that?
I know a little bit about the Hindu. When we talk about like the Indus Valley in I guess it's present day Pakistan and in border of India, that area, that's super old, and there's some interesting anomalies just there. I mean, there's an actual place where they found trinitite, which is when glass forms from an explosion like a nuclear bomb, and they found radiation all over that site. Mohenjo-daro is what it's called. Uh, but there's a lot of cataclysms in our history. I mean, this earth is, and the flood though is the ultimate one that all these cultures share. Like you can go to China, they talk about it in the Mahabharata, they talk about it in India, and the Ramayana. They talk about the flood in Japan, and he goes on and on. I mean, the Sumerian tablets, of course, and yeah. So there's definite like long some major stuff happened. I mean, because you look at like those monuments underwater in Japan, there's like a ancient civilization there. Same with recently they found a civilization in Turkey under Lake Van that is 80 feet down, and it has that cuneiform writing, the writing that the Sumerians did. So it's just, something major happened on this planet for sure, or multiple cataclysms.
Right. There's like different layers of civilization. You mentioned like Göbekli Tepe or whatever. Like
Göbekli
that.
Tepe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Göbekli. That rewrites our understanding of history if it's correct, right? Like
right.
14,000 years ago.
Yeah, and another one in Indonesia. It's called um, Gunung Padang. It's a pyramid, and it's been dated about the same time period. So it's pushing history back. So I mean, we have to look at that, regardless of what people say in history. We have to really look at, like, well, what is all this saying? There's definitely something big that happened, and we're just told in school that it just happened. Just people were independent from each other and created these sites. Like, I went over how the pyramids were created in Egypt. It's like, it's impossible in their story, just downright impossible. They would have to lay a stone every, I think, 25 seconds or something to actually put it in their 25-year window of construction of the Great Pyramid. It's just crazy.
Yeah, how do we explain that? How do you? I mean, you did like a likely compared to like the structures today and the cranes and the weights and the energy. Like the energy needed to put up some of these mega sites is like off the charts.
I
Like,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. And the granite that was built in the interior part of the pyramids, the chambers, that was somehow transported from 600 miles south in Aswan to, how did granite is super hard. It's not going to be on a boat. It's just insane when you think of how all that came about. I mean, that's just one area too. You can go all over the world, and all these places, a lot of them we couldn't build with our own machines today. And if we could, I don't think we could do the job they did, especially with no mortar.
Right, and these are the ones we know of. Like there's huge structures in like Central America that haven't been uncovered. The other one of the funny things is like my interest in American prehistory is like Hernan Cortez invades Mexico and goes to the Aztecs who have a bone of a giant. They show it to him. Says they say giant people lived here, and then he says, "What's this big, huge, pyramid structure here up north from us, Teotihuacan?" And they're like, "We have no idea." They had no idea. So 500 years ago, this Aztec empire grows up in the Lake of Mexico basin, and they're next to another huge edifice of which that history is a mystery to them. So
Right.
it's like, how far back does this go? Like it goes all the way back. And then why is it always pyramids? Why are they building these huge structures? They had structures even in Mesoamerica, right? So like maybe not pure pyramids, but definitely mound works, right?
Yeah, and a lot of them have four corners and stuff. Now, in this documentary, I won't give it away too much. We find a three-cornered monument type thing. So that needs more investigation, but there's nothing like that in the world that we know of, a three-sided, perfectly geometrical shaped pyramid like structure. So yeah, it's but the idea of that kind of building is kind of like, I guess you could say, like, you could liken it to our modern day where people build things like skyscrapers. Well, that's an idea that's been communicated across the world, obviously, so they could, you know, people didn't come up independently with that idea. Well, I think that's the same thing with pyramids. It's got to be. I don't know what else. We don't even know what they were for. That's the crazy thing.
Don't you think these are all mausoleums or memorials or something like that? But I mean, we know that the pyramids in the Aztec Empire were used by like priest classes and rituals, and we can record that. So it's got to be something like that, like this. It's a symbol of power, like I'm higher up than you, and like
Yeah,
pagan power. I mean, does that make sense
it
to you?
does make sense. The only thing that doesn't make sense, though, is the Great Pyramids in Egypt, where you would think if somebody wanted to be known as powerful, like a priest or a king or anybody, they would put the pyramid on a higher ground than a plateau. There is higher ground around Egypt, not like super mountainous, but like you would think they would put it somewhere higher so everybody could see it. But I don't know. I just had that thought when I was there. But I do think that the Freemason. So I think there was an agenda when the conquerors came from on the Crusades and stuff across the Americas, especially to find some of these sites, maybe cover them up or destroy them or some. And I think maybe the Freemasons had something to do with that, and just the way that every single modern day town in our present day was founded by Freemasons. Like from small towns to big cities, they all had knowledge too of these ley lines and where to put buildings. I mean, they have some knowledge. So I feel like if anyone took this knowledge, it might be high up Freemasonry, maybe other orders, Rosicrucians. I don't know, but I just know that the Masons call themselves the builders, and their culture. It seems like they are responsible for a lot of the foundings of a lot of these towns. So they must have had an agenda. Like even Captain Cook might have had an agenda when he came around these islands in Australia and stuff to, destroy possibly some of these things, cover them up, or, claim a different history to them. It just seems that way.
And you'll see that with religions want to impose their own ideological structure. So, like Islam destroys anything Buddhist or anything that doesn't conform with Islam gets destroyed as an idol. They're
Right.
very much into idols. So, and I think that's kind of similar with Christianity to a certain extent. But like, so we've lost history, we've lost knowledge. Like that's probably the best place to find stuff because they found some of these ancient civilizations in the Caribbean, like underneath the water.
Yeah.
These civilization evidence of the civilization. So this whole Earth was teeming with life going back. God only knows how long. I mean,
Right.
you traveled a lot of places. You went to Croatia, right? And you went to Malta. Is that right?
Yeah. The documentary takes you mainly Egypt, Peru, England, Malta, Bosnia, Australia, and 4 Hawaiian islands: Oahu, Big Island, Kauai, Maui. So yeah, quite a few spots.
And a lot of people wouldn't think that a place Bosnia or whatever Yugoslavia was or whatever would have a huge pyramid, right? Like there's
Yeah.
a provable pyramid there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly provable. I mean, I can't say that it's positively, but there's something about that. And when I went there, and in the documentary, I went there with low expectations. And when I got up there, and I'm not a new agey kind of person that is like easy to fall for a lot of, like energy or anything, but I felt a really powerful energy on top of that thing. And it was a good energy. It was a calming energy. And people do go there for healing of diseases and stuff. So there's something about that place and it's definitely not just nothing, but I guess it's a pyramid, I'd say I'm about 97% convinced it is, let's just say, in Bosnia.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like one too.
Yeah.
What's your impression of Malta and things there? Like, there's all kinds of prehistory or lost history there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's these crazy sites that have the same architecture you would find in Egypt, Peru, these big stones put together with no mortar. And then so there's these old sites, and yeah, they say they were built by giants as well, which is interesting. And there's some strange anomalies like these cart ruts, these random lines that run through the ground like like tire tracks in the rock. It's almost like a car went through wet cement and left these tracks, and who knows what they're for. Some of them go straight into the ocean. They go off cliffs and all kinds of stuff. Malta has a lot of mysteries. There's underground burial sites that are megalithic, and then you have the more you have a lot of layers of civilization there. I don't know if Greeks went there. They probably did, but then you had, of course, the Romans, and then the Knights of Malta formed there, and so there's a lot of layers to that place, and currently it's its own sovereign country. So there's a lot of things to that place. But when you get down to like the where people live and stuff, I bet you their houses are built on top of temples and sites that they just never dug up.
I bet you're right. I've heard the same thing about Corsica and Sardinia and even Sicily, megalithic sites like huge obelisks or monoliths and
Mm-hmm.
things like that that really haven't made it to Western media and things like that. But I forgot who it was. I think it may have been Derek Gilbert to win a trip there. Derek Gilbert from Peering into Darkness, a Christian group, to go see it, like go see
Uh-huh.
like Nephilim type stuff from that perspective. But the more you look around, it's just they're all over the place. They're all over the world, really, without a lot of explanation. And there clearly were giants. I mean, they're mentioned in the
Yeah.
Bible, but like the evidence of that, I think is fairly good. It's not like you said for academic, inquiry, but it's there. I think that
It,
evidence is there.
Absolutely. I mean, Gilgamesh was a giant, and there's tales of giants in so many different cultures. I think Native Americans talk about giants too. Yeah, and then of course the Bible, and it's all over the place, and long lifespans too. So this pre-flood culture apparently had these giant lifespans, and some of them are almost unbelievable, like the Sumerian kings list, where some of these people are said to have lived for 30 to 40,000 years, which is like totally mind-boggling. Like, what? I don't, is that right? Or the Zeptepi in Egypt, where these kings, this was the reign of the gods in this time period. They lived these extremely long lifespans, but you'll notice in all these same, and the Bible, all these same accounts, their lifespans start getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And after the flood, we don't even have anybody living crazy amounts of time, other than like 100 years at the most or
Right,
so.
but Methuselah was what 950 years or
Yep.
something, 980. So
Yep.
like these are incredible lifespans, which could explain technology or doing this, having the time and
Yeah.
inclination. Like, oh, this will take 5 years. Well, that's nothing to somebody lives 980 years.
Yeah.
So some of these could explain some of these megalithic sites or things like that. What is it? Baalbek too has that huge stone. They're
Oh yeah.
everywhere. Crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like our world is littered with these places. So I guess where this documentary takes people uh is we're trying to find new places, and in places where people aren't looking. And so Hawaii being one of them, and Australia being another one, where you don't really hear about these things, but these places too have things that are strange, anomalous, and must be part of this lost world that we're just not, people aren't looking for it in these spots. So
Right.
the documentary doesn't have great revelations like, wow, we found an underground city or anything, but there's small clues that do point to something, kind of underlying fact that all this was global.
What do they talk about in Australia? Like what sites are there?
Well, there's the Gosford glyphs, which are these it's these in the middle of nowhere. There are these rock walls that are littered with Egyptian hieroglyphs, and they're carved in the rock. And the mainstream story is that a soldier returned home after being in Egypt during World War One and carved all these engravings in the wall. But it doesn't make sense in the way that, why would he do it in the middle of nowhere, and what for? And so my friend Triffin, who's one of the main people in the documentary, he had talked to an Egyptologist, showed him all of the hieroglyphs, and he said it's a certain dialect of hieroglyph that would be pretty impossible to to emulate, because it was done thousands of years ago. So you have these engravings on the wall. My friend found a strange imprint in rock that we find that possibly was like a stone cutting tool. We don't really know, but near it is site where obviously a chunk of rock was laser like taken out and of the bedrock, and so there's evidence of that, and there's evidence of a pyramid there, but the government built a highway right through the pyramid site, so it's pretty much as hard to find. But they found polygonal masonry there as well. So this stuff, if you were just to take a close-up picture and not know where it was, someone would say, "Oh, that's in Peru. That looks like it's Incan," or "That looks like it's Egyptian," but it's in Australia. And of course, the Aboriginals didn't do these things, and neither did the British settlers. So who did it? So those are some of the things we find in Australia.
Wow, that's wild. So it's all over the place. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. There's a place outside of Australia that they found something recently. I forgot where it was, but it's like, I don't know, is it Port Moresby or something? Like the islands are just rife with all kinds of strange anomalies they
interesting.
can't explain.
Yeah.
I have to find that. What about Hawaii? What do you think that's there? I mean, you guys kind of ventured to go find a pyramid, but kind of had trouble finding that. I saw that at the last little bit of your talk.
Yeah. Well, we're basically following clues that are like finding a needle in a haystack. And the problem with the sites here in Hawaii is that some of these areas get over 200 inches of rain a year, and they're so thickly overgrown that we basically need LiDAR to uncover to see if that's a structure there or not. But we try our best with our limited abilities. But I'm making a sequel, so we're just kind of getting started with this. And but yeah, we found about let's see, well, 2 sites for sure that are not just nothing, and then there's a bunch of other stuff for another movie. So
Gotcha. Yeah, you could probably do like 10 episodes on this subject.
I know.
Like there's so many. I think China has a bunch of like megalithic huge temples and things like that, and
they do.
It just doesn't end.
Yeah, the government covers that up. They have pyramids they've buried in dirt on purpose. So yeah, there's a lot there, and they're changing. They found these caves, and they put modern day, I don't know, carvings in it just to kind of throw off that it was not ancient or something. It's strange and made it a tourist attraction. I don't understand their one of the guys in my documentary, Mike Collins, went there and did a bunch of video there. Yeah.
What's interesting is a lot of this stuff was left covered up for centuries. Like I think Chichen Itza in the Yucatan was like covered in dirt until 100 years ago. Like it's unbelievable until kind of Westerners or like there's things in Guatemala that have like LiDAR has shown there's huge complexes.
Yeah.
So it's like we need to know all this stuff. If it hasn't been looted, the other thing is like some stuff is lost to history because it's all been, there's some looting going on or things have disappeared. So that's another concern.
Right. In Tahiti, there's a pyramid that Captain Cook logged in his journal. It looks just like the Mayan civilization, and he called them Indians in his journal, but they purposely they took apart that pyramid and used the stones to make roads. So it's like, people didn't care about this stuff, or there was a deliberate cover up, a bit of both, I think. But
isn't that the story of the Great Pyramids? Is that they were covered with a different stone and they were all taken down? I mean, I've heard that story too.
Right, that the outer casing was definitely. So yeah. The only one that has the middle pyramid still has the capstone, but everything else is pretty much gone.
They used it all. So that's another thing, like against these old civilizations, is the new ones come and use all this stuff and tear them down.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of different other guys, some names that are in there that I'm not familiar with. They're the other kind of megalithic, old history, ancient history kind of buffs.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. So I'll go over the cast of people in it. There's Triffin down in Australia. He has a podcast called Unlocking the Code. I've been working with him for years, and he kind of actually helped me get into this information more. Like, he kind of lit a fuse inside me. And Seb Land, who is a friend of mine on Big Island, and so Zach Royer, he's he's like an explorer, and he's done a lot of work on these previous work on this Hawaiian pyramid stuff. So we linked up with him, and then we have Mike Collins, who is a kind of a journalist, goes around to these sites and does drone shots, and he's pretty big on YouTube. And a girl named Nikki Anna Jones, which is also does the same thing. And then you have a lot of truth speakers in it too, like Ole Demigard, yourself, Sean McCann, Bob Tuskin. I linked up with Paul Wallace, who does a lot of stuff on YouTube about ancient civilization. He was a preacher, Catholic preacher, and he kind of really started seeing the Bible in a new way. And he has a lot of information, books like Escaping Eden and stuff, pretty interesting things. And then Heather Arnold is also in it, who is uncovering the giants of Aruba. So anyway, so it's a bunch of eclectic voices. And like I said, that's what I wanted, is I wanted a variety to really throw in a lot of information that comes so people can go down a lot of paths, so they can check out, for example, your show and all your work. And I hope this documentary does that with people, where they go, oh, I want to see what that person does. And, and they're not people that all hang out in the same room, but it's awesome because that allows you to kind of go a lot of different ways.
Right. That makes sense. And where can people see it? I know I'm showing it right now. It's on Vimeo, so they can watch it on Vimeo right now. Right.
Right.
I saw the part 1. I missed part 2.
Yeah. Director's cut. So there's 2 ways. So first, you can go to my website, sacredsite.info, and it'll give you a link, but you can also go to Vimeo, and Vimeo is where it's at the moment. I want to put it on more platforms. I'm actually really frustrated with Vimeo right now, but anyway, it is what it is. And so you can go there and watch it. There's a theatrical version, which is 120 minutes, pretty standard length, gets to the adventures right away. That's what you might want to show to somebody who's not really into this that much, or doesn't really like, just a standard audience. And then there's director's cut, which is pretty meaty and full of information. So I cut it into two parts. It's almost 2 hours long, so that's why I cut it into 2 parts. And the first part is more going into the Eastern Hemisphere, kind of coming with receipts about this information, and telling people how we come to these conclusions. And then the second half, we get more into the newer spots, as well as a lot of modern day look at what the present is, because the present is connected to the past. If we've been lied about our history, then we're on the same trajectory of being lied to in our present. And so just kind of brings people up to speed in the second half, and really gets into, like showing that not to be deceived in these times. So it's an interesting amalgamation how it all came about, but I think it works. So that's
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed watching it. There was stuff I hadn't seen before.
Cool.
And that's at sacredsite.info, info. So I'll put a link to your website.
Yeah.
And then you still have your podcast too, so people can check that out too.
Yeah. chantitdownradio.com is my other website for that stuff.
So Chant It Down, Sacred Site. So I'll put 2 links, and then they can reach out to you at either one of those. Like I see you have a contact here. So if they have any questions or reach out to you, your website, and then your email address is on there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Good. Well, anything you'd like to add, or anything I missed before?
No, I think that's pretty good. I appreciate you coming on there too. I'm glad I could get your voice on there, and just thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And it's just good. I think it's going to open up a lot of doorways for people that enjoy. Like, it can be an enjoyable watch, yet you're also going to learn something, whether you don't know as much about the megalithic side, or you don't know as much about what's happening in the present day. I think everybody can learn a bit from it, but for people too that don't know anything about any of this. So it's good for beginners too.
Yeah, I saw stuff I hadn't seen before, and I have an interest in this topic. So, again, it's Leumas of Chant It Down Radio, and his new documentary is Sacred Sites. So SACRED SIGHT, and I will put a link to the website and your website in this. So, congrats on the new documentary, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, William. All right.
Cool. Stay there.